All right, let's just jump right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're looking at a genuinely powerful little story from the channel The Wordy Tales. And honestly, it's way more than just a simple parable. It's really kind of a masterclass on how we look at our own unique strengths, why we sometimes completely fail at discipline, and how we can actually unlock success without completely burning ourselves out. We're going to unpack the entire architecture of intrinsic motivation, and we're going to use a really relatable framework to do it. I am super excited to guide you through this, so let's get started.
Have you ever felt just absolutely crushed because you were comparing your own weaknesses to someone else's natural strengths? We've all been there, right? And that is exactly where our story kicks off. We meet our protagonist, David. He's this energetic 12-year-old, a sixth grader who basically lives to be outdoors. But one afternoon, he comes home, totally slumps onto the couch, and is just looking utterly miserable. He's staring at his math book because he just got a pretty bad grade. But here's the thing. It's actually not the grade itself that's bringing him down. It's his buddy, his neighbor Matt.
Now, what's really interesting is the stark contrast between these two kids. On the left side, you've got David. His absolute domain is the soccer field. The kid is just a natural athlete. But then over on the right, you have Matt. Matt's domain is completely different. He thrives in the classroom, specifically with math, high grades, and puzzles. And no matter how hard David tries to force it, he feels like he is never going to catch up to Matt's academic successes. He just feels totally inadequate. Luckily, David's dad notices his frustration, and instead of just giving him that standard, hey, you just need to study harder lecture, he brings David out to the backyard garden and sets up this really clever, structured three-part challenge.
Which brings us to Lesson 1, Unique Strengths. So let's see how the dad sets up the very first phase of this framework. For challenge number 1, the father simply tells David, hey, I want you to invite Matt to play soccer with you tomorrow. And that's literally it. Sounds simple enough, right? But think about the expectation being set up here. We are about to take this math genius and drop him straight into David's natural habitat, the public soccer pitch.
And well, you can probably guess exactly how that played out. David, who's out there playing almost every single day, totally dominates the game. He scores 3 goals, gets a massive victory for his team. But Matt absolutely flounders. He doesn't really know the flow of the game. He's constantly losing the ball, making mistake after mistake. He is just entirely out of his element. Now, despite the massive skill gap, they all actually had a really great time, but that physical performance gap, it was completely undeniable.
So David comes back, and his dad delivers this absolute gem of an insight. He says, we're all different, and that's okay. We each have our own strengths and passions. He points out to David that, look, just as you struggle with math but are amazing at soccer, Matt struggles on the field but is a wizard at math. It's a brilliant way to illustrate that human talent is highly contextual. We aren't carbon copies of each other. We're not built to excel in the exact same arenas. Judging David by his ability to do calculus is like judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree. It is just a guaranteed recipe for misery.
Moving right along to Lesson 2, Consistent, Joyful Practice. All right, so the dad has established that different people have different baseline strengths. Now he guides David into the second phase of this process, to show him why those specific strengths actually develop. The very next day, challenge number 2 is issued. He tells David to pay extremely close attention to Matt at school, specifically keeping track of how often Matt counts or plays with numbers. Do you see what the dad is doing here? He is completely shifting David's focus away from Matt's final test scores, and he's putting a magnifying glass straight onto Matt's subconscious everyday routines. And what David discovers is actually fascinating. All day long, Matt isn't just grinding through assigned homework. He's actively seeking numbers out. He's working on math problems. He's doing puzzles just for the fun of it. He's calculating change during recess. The kid even took a moment to literally count the petals on a flower. Matt is constantly bathing in numbers. It's this massive volume of effortless, natural practice that is just happening quietly all day long.
And this builds into a much, much larger concept, forced practice versus joyful practice. The dad explains that, hey, Matt is good at math primarily because he genuinely enjoys it. When you love something, the practice doesn't feel difficult or tedious, like that forced practice over on the left side. It feels completely natural. You start doing simple little things like counting flower petals, and over time, that just compounds into immense skill. Improvement comes from consistent practice, and let's be real, staying consistent is just infinitely easier when the activity sparks joy rather than absolute dread.
And that sets us up for Lesson 3, the burnout trap. So with those 2 foundational ideas in place, we transition into the final and honestly, the toughest phase of David's journey. The dad asks David to estimate just how much better Matt is at math than him. David thinks about it for a second and says, well, I think Matt is about 3 times better at math than I am. So the dad sets the ultimate challenge.
Okay, I want you to study math 3 times harder tomorrow. Oof, that is a brutal request. But David decides to meet it head-on. After an hour of intense focus, he forces himself to push through for 2 additional hours, literally tripling his usual effort. He is applying pure, unfiltered willpower to a task he naturally dislikes.
And the result? It takes an immediate physical toll. He gets this throbbing headache, and he literally falls asleep right there at his desk. Later on, he wakes up to a soft tap from his dad. David just hangs his head, feeling incredibly disappointed in himself. He tells his dad he completely failed the challenge because his head hurt and he just couldn't stay awake. He's convinced he just lacks discipline.
But here is the absolutely crucial point. The dad gently explains to him, David, you didn't fail because you're lazy. You failed because trying to master something you genuinely do not enjoy is an uphill battle. Look at the left side, brute force discipline. It is incredibly hard to stay consistent when you are actively fighting your own nature. But then look at the right side, studying what you love. When you apply your focus to something you actually care about, just like David does with soccer, discipline and consistency suddenly feel much, much lighter. They don't drain you, they energize you.
Which brings us to the culmination of it all, the secret to success, the ultimate takeaway. This is where the whole story synthesizes perfectly. We've seen the 3 challenges. We've explored unique strengths, the massive power of joyful practice, and the very real danger of the burnout trap. And David's dad leaves him with this incredibly memorable maxim, either study what you love or learn to love what you're studying. This just beautifully ties the concepts of passion and discipline together. If you want to become an expert, you basically have 2 paths. Path A, lean into your natural passions and study what you already love. Or Path B, actively reframe your perspective on the task so that you can find some joy and curiosity within it. Learn to love what you're studying. But trying to rely on suffering and brute force discipline alone, that is a guaranteed dead end every single time.
Which leaves us with this final thought. I want you to really ask yourself right now, are you trying to force yourself to be a Matt in an area where you are naturally a David? Are you out there using brute force to overcome a lack of passion instead of leveraging the actual things that energize you? Because success isn't about being perfectly well-rounded at everything. It's about finding your own field, counting your own petals, and letting your natural curiosity drive your discipline. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Now take these lessons and go apply them to your own life today.